What's going on, folks? In today's video, I wanted to share some of my concept art and ideas for some powerful creatures known as the god dragons within the world of Kulgurath. Now lately I've just been in the mood of doing a lot of rough concept sketches rather than like any fully rendered artwork, and I wanted to show y'all some of the stuff I've been conjuring up here. For those of you who are new to the channel, Kulgurath is my fantasy world IP that I've been building up here over like the past year. And I happen to publish a bestiary book of Kulgurath over on Amazon for those of you who want to get your hands on that. Link in the description box down below. But anyways, these god dragons here are powerful beings who serve as the guardians between realms. So we have Kulgurath, which is the main world, but there are these elemental planes that exist adjacent to the world. Also known as primordial planes, each one is a realm of a particular magical element, with those being light, shadow, air, earth, fire, ice, water, and thunder. And these primordial planes are responsible for the existence of elemental magic within Kulgurath. So for example, if you're like a mage casting a fire spell, what you're doing is siphoning that fire elemental energy from the primordial plane of fire. And because these realms are intertwined together in such a way, having these titanic god dragons basically serve as like the gatekeepers between worlds is a role of extreme importance. These dragons were gifted with the almighty powers of the primordials, who are basically like the gods of each elemental plane. So now let me roll the time-lapse sketching of each of these dragons, and I'll go over some of like my thoughts and such for their designs and like what my ideas were here. So first up we have Elydrion, the god dragon of light. So this was the first of all the god dragons that I conceptualized. Obviously, since the element light is basically the equivalent to something like holy magic, I wanted this dragon to have a sense of elegance and beauty to it, while also looking pretty powerful. And rather than just designing some shiny gold dragon, I wanted to try and incorporate some other ideas into its design. So I thought, what about making this dragon's holy powers revolve around music? Basically making it a bard dragon. My idea here is that its metallic scales rattle like chimes, and instead of generic horns or, membranes on like the tail fins there, I kind of themed those details around instruments like the keys of a piano or like the pipes of an organ. And they too can clang and ring against each other to create beautiful sounds. And even like those little black spots and stripes are kind of meant to be reminiscent of like musical notes as well. Also, like I mentioned before, these are all rough concepts, so most of them aren't fully designed all the way through. So I'm going to flesh these out a little more and refine the look still. But you can get the general feel of what I'm going for here. And I just feel like if this thing right here were in a video game or a movie and you approach the dragon, there would be like these grand chords playing and like some epic angelic chants being hummed and like echoing through your body. It'd be a cool scene, it'd be a whole vibe. But yeah, since Elydrion is a bard dragon, the music it creates are spells of healing, but also righteous spells of retribution. This definitely ended up being like a favorite of mine just in terms of the themes that I combined here. But of course, light cannot exist without darkness. So now let's move on to the god dragon of shadow. For this one's design, I decided to take some inspiration from some of my favorite edgy pop culture characters such as Spawn, Sauron, and even Nightmare from Soul Calibur. So instead of this dude having wing membranes, I wanted its wings and tail to be made entirely of this shadowy cloak that flickers and fades into oblivion. Also, I think it's cooler to have its scaly plating to look more like the plated armor of something like a Death Knight. So, lots of jagged edges and plenty of spikes, of course. Since this god dragon dwells within the deepest, darkest abyss, it sees and hears all things done within the shadows. Which is why you'll notice that I lined its entire body with piercing, glowing red eyes to emphasize that trait. So all y'all sneaky little shits who think you got away with that dastardly deed you've committed, think again, for the great Erazul sees all. For the color palette, I had to go with my favorite combo, black and red of course, so I'm biased towards this one's design. I definitely got to do a finalized drawing of Erazul here in the near future. And now let's move on to one of the most unlikely of designs for a god dragon. So this was one of those times where I sat down to sketch with no real direction or ideas, and I just kind of zoned out and let my hand just randomly throw down lines until the thought of flying whales and frogs entered my mind. If you had asked me from the start, I would have thought I'd design some sort of bird-inspired god dragon of air, certainly not a whale or a frog. But there's some good blending of body shapes between those two creatures, and I figured I could still go with the more bird-like feathered wings here still. But also I wanted to give it this puffy cloud appearance where it would almost be able to camouflage itself amongst the clouds above, flying unseen from those below. I always had this idea in mind for a video game boss fight where you would be atop this sky-piercing tower overlooking a sea of clouds during the sunset, and you would fight some sort of monstrous creature that would basically swim beneath the clouds and resurface to attack. And its body reflects the same like sunset colors as the clouds around it. So I figured that old idea could be incorporated here into Kulgurath with the god dragon of air. I should honestly probably do a painting of that scene or something just to really cement that idea finally, because I've been sitting on it forever. And I also need to add some little details to its design to push it further. But there you go, Nimbaros, the god dragon of air. And now we can check out the only design that is 100% finished, and that, my comrades, is the god dragon of earth, Drakthar. On this one's design, first and foremost, I wanted it to be a lumbering, hulkish beast. My first sketch was a more mammalian drake-like body shape, but then I had the thought of incorporating a sauropod into its design. Being that they were the largest creatures to ever walk on land in our world, it's a fitting choice for this seismic sentinel here. Of course, I had to drape its body in tons of flora to really incorporate its element, but rather than go the choice of its body armor to be like your stereotypical rocky plating, I chose to make its plating more bone-like in appearance. I wanted to have this almost ancient jungle shaman kind of vibe, and I feel like the bone-plated armor helps convey that more. And one of its key traits are those massive curved spikes erupting from its torso, and I mainly added those since I wanted something cool to replace the spot where wings would go, but also because it would look sick as hell to look down into a jungle valley and see these 6 massive bone spires jutting out of the ground where the god dragon slumbers. And I don't know if anyone else noticed this, but its plating and colors are actually pretty reminiscent of Tyranitar, which wasn't originally intended, but welcome nonetheless. Overall, this is one of my favorite creature concepts I've done in general, and it ended up turning out just how I hoped it would. Now time for another one of my favorites, the Hand of Destruction, the mighty Volkarok, god dragon of fire. When I was coming up with the design and themes for this one, I started off with a few different ideas. The first one, a dragon covered in rocky volcanic pores that look like smokestacks. A second design that has these wings of magma that continuously drip like a lava fall, and a torch flame tail. And the third design, I went with a more classical dragon body type, but with Godzilla-inspired dorsal plates that would glow like flames. Then I went ahead and took aspects from all 3 of these loose concepts and fused them into one single entity. And I think the end result fully encapsulates the badass heavy metal vibes I wanted this one to display. The theme song for Volkarok would definitely have to consist of some insane guitar riffs, like the kind of music you would hear in one of the Doom games or something. Now we move on over to the god dragon of water. I've been wanting to do some creature designs based off the leafy sea dragon and the blue angel sea slug, so I decided to use them here when sketching up this concept. This is another one where I didn't spend a whole lot of time with different ideas or iterations, so it's still pretty loose overall, but I'll end up keeping a lot of its design traits intact when I do the finalized version of it. Since it's a water-dwelling creature, its body is more of that serpent or leviathan kind of build to give it that more elegant and flowing aesthetic with long tendrils and fins. And I threw down some quick little bioluminescence dots all along its body as well, which again was done super rough without much thought, so I'll think it through a little more when I do like the cleanup version. But here we have Nicerial, the god dragon of water. Now let's briefly go over the 7th creature design here, Zolteryx, the god dragon of thunder. When sketching up this dude, I had the idea of combining a couple different things. A bumblebee, because of the yellow and black striping patterns go well with something that has ties to thunder and lightning, and then Tesla coils for the conduction of electricity. I figured these coiled shapes would blend perfectly well with like the black rings around the body, and that these patterns would light up when it charges its attacks. The incorporation of some more insect-like traits helped differentiate it from the stereotypical dragon body type, which is what I was going for because I want all these god dragons to feel unique from one another. I definitely need to work on this one's design up in the lab some more and see what I can do to push it further and maybe break up some of the body parts here. And finally, we move on to the last of the god dragons, who is currently under construction because this design you see here is just a placeholder sketch that I scribbled up in a few minutes because I had no real ideas of how I wanted to go about it. So that's where y'all come into play. If you happen to have any themes or ideas that I can combine into creating the God Dragon of Ice, let me know in the comments down below. There's a few different routes I'm thinking about maybe going, but I for sure want it to be slightly heftier and grounded of a dragon. That's actually why you see the wings on this one not being large enough for flight or anything, but rather just something that looks cool. Now, before I wrap up this video, last month I hosted a creature design contest on the channel, and unfortunately I didn't get all the entries because there were several contestants' submissions that got sent into my spam folder, so they didn't get posted up on the video montage of everyone's creature designs. But I wanted to make sure that these get shown off, so let's take a moment to check out the illustrations from these artists. So there you go. Sorry for the mix-up, folks, but good work nonetheless, and thank you all for sharing your art with us. That's going to do it for today's video. Do me a solid, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you like the content and want to see more of it. I'm definitely going to get back to more of a scheduled routine here again with my uploads now that I got some things settled in my life that were taking priority over the last couple months. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.